You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would,
This is a long hesitation.
We think of capitalism and competition as synonyms, and I believe they are antonyms. I believe that a capitalist is someone who's in the business of accumulating capital. A world of perfect competition is a world where all the profits are competed away.
Say, oh, I'll give you all this data, and you don't even realize just how much society could really depend on that. I was kind of on the side of people who were probably more MAGA aligned when it came down to like, oh man, let's get away from these 15-minute cities and this total surveillance system and this government overreach. And I'm just watching things now like, wow, this next segment is based on the Book of Unlimited Hangout, and the chapter is from Project 2025 to the PayPal presidency. Okay, and this translator is John Klizek. Hope I'm saying that right. I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. Hyping his trailblazing PayPal empire and its ambitions to advance the fintech creation of a new world currency free from all government control and dilution, Peter Thiel, proclaimed that the great task for liberations is to find an escape from politics in all its forms, including all forms of democracy.
You would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation.
This is another quote from the article. Like CBDCs, stablecoins can also be digitally programmed for government-restricted purchases through blockchain and smart contracts. Now, this is... I must first off admit that I am not as up to date in terms of my knowledge on digital currency and what's happening in the world of digital currency, and particularly the regulations behind digital currency. I know kind of a few things here and there, but my understanding isn't completely solid. So I'm going to speak to you guys about this from that understanding. So if you're like one of the the crypto guys out there, just please don't be too mad, and by all means correct me in the comments if anything, and straighten the record out. I mean, unless you're like advocating for like one of these like stable coins and the government controlling money, then you can keep your thoughts to yourself. But if anything, there's a partnership that is forming, and that's what's really important here. And this is through this administration, right? It's kind of another indicator that this is really more deep state sanctioned than the people probably think, and that MAGA probably really understands, because these guys are essentially a dream come true, it seems like, for these tech guys to get in and essentially enslave humanity in a way. But the idea here is that I'm ignorant on finance of kind of digital currencies, right? But I'm a little bit more seasoned with surveillance and education. So I kind of have this idea forming in terms of how powerful it can be to really combine these in certain systems. And John points out a very disturbing system in the making here, because we're talking about systems that include students essentially being financially incentivized to give their data to these weird guys. And this, I mean, John uses some very disturbing language here. He talks about predictive learning, and he also talks about essentially social credit systems, and there's a lot more in there. And like I said, this was a long article, and like I said, I got general understanding from someone who's not particularly up to date on my understanding of crypto and digital currency, not crypto in general. And so, but you guys definitely should understand that a lot of these particular currencies and these systems, they're inherently, a lot of them are built to have backdoors, and there's a lot of backdoors being engineered in a lot of them. So you guys might want to watch out for entrusting a lot of the revolutionary tying a lot of the revolutionary concepts to crypto in general. And just understand also the idea of bartering trade systems, the barter trade exchange. And you can also look into that in terms of if you have one in your area and what you can kind of like start to do. Those things are more close to the fundamentals of trading in society, and I'm more so it's easier for me to recommend something like that in terms of more power over your actual the economics in your life. But here John's talking about this idea of stepping towards A1 social credit systems. It may help these guys get a lot more control over us in general. And some of you guys may have heard that Linda McMahon is the Department of Education. I don't even know what her title is, but you should essentially understand that that woman doesn't need, like, there's an interview where she describes like, oh, we're like, I just remember this art. I remember this video clip and it plays rent free in my head. Like,
pre-Ks have A1 teaching, every year starting, that far down in the grades, and that's a wonderful thing. Kids are.
I'm assuming she means A1 top-notch teaching. I assume she means like top tier. Let's see if she clarifies.
Wasn't all that long ago that we're going to have internet in our schools. Whoop. Now, okay, let's see A1 and how.
She means AI. She means AI. This is our Secretary of Education in this country. This is the biggest issue in education right now. We have ChatGPT cheating rampant through all of grade school, high school, and college. And our Secretary of Education doesn't even know it's called AI. She thinks it's A1.
So this lady who's in charge of education, when we're talking about integrating AI into education, she was saying A1 rather than AI. Okay? So it's a very safe assumption to say that she is a front for the people who really want to do something with AI in education.
Madam Secretary, and I'm not a great mathematician, but I think you were talking about $1 trillion. I believe 1.5 billion times 10 is $15 billion. That's a little bit off from $1 trillion, but
I think the budget cuts 1.2 billion for TRIO.
Well, 1.2, that would be $12 billion, not $1 trillion.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay, agree to disagree. Our Secretary of Motherfucking Education. Something about her makes me lose it more than anyone else.
And the fact that you need a front tells me that people probably don't like the real face of what's going on. And it'd probably be less agreeable to have that face in those particular institutions. John talks about that in terms of who's really in charge here. He mentions this guy that has a particular base. He doesn't particularly say that they are in charge, but he does mention the guy. And that's who, I mean, honestly, that's who's in charge. I'm going to go on the record and say that. But the idea here is that this is a system being built in place. Very, very, very important that you understand that these guys want to take education and put it in private hands, right? So this idea of that doesn't necessarily sound as bad until you realize that these guys who are looking for basically the education to get into private hands, they're not like people who are just really passionate about like teaching or anything like that. They are people who have very established relationships with those alphabet agencies that we all want to ignore, that we all want to get away from. These are the people who are creating the network that are already taking part in this particular network in certain ways. So they are first up. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But the idea of this idea of what happened with Doge is they're deciding essentially that private corporations are more efficient, right? That's the verbiage used there. It's more efficient, and they're going to essentially cut through bureaucracy and make sure that, believe this or not, make sure that only approved purchases are made. I don't know how this like is a plan and stated anywhere, period, but the idea is that these guys have that plan. That is the actual plan for a lot of these systems in place, and that is it's I mean, this is so crazy. Like I feel like I was kind of on the side of people who were probably more MAGA aligned when it came down to like, oh man, let's get away from these 15-minute cities or whatever, and this total surveillance system, this government overreach. And I'm just watching things now like, wow, this is, I mean, I don't even like at this point it's a like, I mean, it does look like a genuine cult. Like, I'm not even joking. We're talking about essentially tax dollars being collected by the government to be doled out in the form of digital currencies that are more that the government can't control. And that is my basic understanding of this. But these guys are really formulating some really creative ways to sell this to people. Okay, so one of the ideas is that more options are going to be available for parents to control their kids' education. And I mean, these guys are, they are legitimately, there is a mental sickness that needs to be studied with these guys, because it's, like I said, like, you can pay for extra systems and stuff like that. I'm just like, or pay for extra programs and things like that. It's like, you mean with the money that you're getting with tax dollars? Like, what? Like, I don't understand. Like, it is crazy to think that, but yeah, I mean, software, just the idea of trying to create, a financial obligation for people through developing a software that costs you nothing after the production. It's wild to me. But I mean, in any case, the idea here is that these guys aren't fully functioning adult people in my mind. Like, I don't view them as people who need to be in charge of in education in general. And I say that as somebody who is not particularly, like, when it comes down to the role of technology in education, I'm not, like, there was a point to where I kind of cringed at that idea in terms of having it in a more prominent role in education. And I definitely think there does need to be limits. But while we certainly need to move away from the people who are looking for like more power to move fast and break society. I don't think that we need to be necessarily cringing at them so hard that we move back to an Amish way of life. I do think that there's a repair that needs to happen between general people and everyday people and technology that will require us to scale back and for things to become less quote-unquote convenient, because convenient, it's honestly built to be a trap now. You got like Google, and I de-googled my phone, and they are literally, like, it is so crazy in terms of understanding the relationship between Google and your everyday life right now. And all you just have to do is just imagine, like, one CEO having to bend the knee and say, "Oh, I'll give you all this data," and you don't even realize just how much society has really could really depend on that one CEO. And right now, that's like Google's looking like pretty up there right now, and it's a problem. But I definitely like this idea of technology in the world, or technology in education. I think a book really kind of helped me be more understanding of the potential in terms of actually fight through the idea that, hey, we don't want robots teaching kids, which is still true, but there may still be a role of technology in education. And we have computer labs already, but whatever, right? But this idea here of the book in general is called The Friendly Orange Glow, okay? Now, this is a book that talks about how computers first started, or how computers were first really just built on, in terms of creating a lot of the programs and things of that nature that got taken up by the systems or the companies that we know, like IBM and those particular guys that we view as the starters for technology. Those guys didn't start there. Those guys didn't pioneer a lot of the stuff. They went in and they co-opted what was happening with the friendly orange glow. And that's what was interesting here, is because this idea of really technology, or computers in general, it was embedded in technology, or computers was embedded in in terms of the actual growth and development, was embedded in education. So these guys were essentially just able to put this program in this particular space, and like the college kids and those high school kids took over they built out, they built certain systems. There was like a situation where they built like games, computer networks and stuff like that, but it was also built around educating, in terms of there were programs that were built to educate people and better educate kids. And that was kind of why that system got there in the first place, because this particular system was essentially a way to supplement education. And that's essentially like this relationship between this new system and all of the students was something that was it blossomed into really just an environment of experimentation where everybody benefited. And honestly, when it comes down to education, I do think there needs to be the more natural form to educate people is through entertainment in a way. So that's definitely something that I view as kind of needed to happen. And I'm advocating for a new relationship with technology, and particularly one that brings people closer together in the physical world, right? So technology being harnessed not to collect data and sell ads to weird companies, but to really have people meeting based, to incentivize people meeting more and more and creating more and more networks and groups together. And that's something that I think is definitely attainable, and it would also be essentially something that we can kind of use as, we can really put that spirit behind developing any system around AI and technology. But we have to kind of give up this idea of control in a lot of situations. And that's, or the control and surveillance and stuff like that. Because, I mean, I wouldn't view more surveillance as more security. That doesn't quite add up to me in terms of how things are done now. But this is a renaissance that I'm talking about, right? A renaissance that's more people-led rather than, the weird tech guys and the government taking this charging lead as if they have some kind of like moral authority to do a lot of these things. But I do like this idea of essentially my vision in general for technology, the vision I really would like for technology and the role that it has in education. It is in no way related to what these guys have in mind right now, as far as I understand it. And I'm pretty confident that I understand it at least as much to say that. And this is, we have a problem right now, I think, in general, because there should be all types of alarms around these guys in education. And I think that problem is rooted in just our inherent system around how we value or and don't value education, right? Because a more powerful understanding, I think, is, this idea of education and its role in society. The more powerful perspective, I think, can really be understood as through this caste system in India, right? And this is interesting, so you can follow me for a second. I think it's kind of like, it feels out there at first, but the idea here is that in the caste system in India, the people at the top of the caste, they have a particular role in society, and that role is tied to spirituality, things around religion or whatever, right? The divine right to rule or whatever, but it is also paired to education. They are overrepresented in education. That is, that idea of what, if we take that caste system in America now, we probably wouldn't view that as a natural understanding that comes about, these people are, they're gonna sit around and do nothing and be like, I don't even know what we'd envision them doing if there was a top caste system. It'd probably be venture capitalists like Andrew. These guys are so, this is crazy. But in any case, when we carry that understanding that this is the top caste system in India for a reason, for a very real reason. There's also an understanding that I got through one of the books that I was reading, where they were trying to essentially, this book was about how the relationship between as a country, particularly in Africa, with the nation of I think it was the French or one of the European nations, but at some point they realized that if they allow education to kind of just progress in a more organic fashion, then the colonized state will view themselves as like, or will start to question why they are, question why this is, there's this inherent hierarchy. They'll question it, and it will just be like, well, this is kind of ridiculous. Like, I don't understand these things. And they'll start asking questions. So they had to go in and repair. They had to go in and repair the actual education itself. That was very important to keep control, because you couldn't necessarily keep an army in these places 24/7. But when you have an education system, that right there is much more powerful. Just to give you a little bit more insight in terms of what could be brewing in the background for a lot of these guys. And I mean, essentially, another way to kind of get this idea across is that education can really be understood as just really the creation of a standard citizen. This idea of who people are, right? What they, how they operate. There is always a connection to the compulsory education system, right? So this is interesting, because one, it tells about the failures of our current education system, but it also tells about how bad things can get with this new education system.
We have ChatGPT cheating rampant through all of grade school, high school, and college. And our Secretary of Education doesn't even know it's called AI. She thinks it's A1.
So these things are very much interesting and very much worrisome when you think about how bullish a lot of these guys really are about education in general. And for like I said before, for anyone who's really they're hopeful, right, about the potential for some kind of ethical company that comes in and really values teachers and education in any way, that's not looking very likely, right? We talked about how these guys are in place to facilitate this new system, right? Particularly, a lot of them have invested in creating digital wallets around the systems that are already in place. Okay, Peter Thiel and these weird guys, they don't like real competition.
We think of capitalism and competition as synonyms, and I believe they are antonyms. I believe that a capitalist is someone who's in the business of accumulating capital. A world of perfect competition is a world where all the profits are competed away.
They don't want real competition, okay? They want to pay politicians and get what they want. And this is what they want. It's not based on who's, doing the best job, who's able to really do anything. It's just about, I have the money, so I deserve this, power, right? This is how a lot of these guys operate. And this idea, they are already rooted, right? Because John goes over how they're rooted in the actual system now, and how they were already gaining roots through various administrations, but how that is kind of starting to look today. I am more worried today, because it does seem like a lot of the populace now thinks oh, good, things must be happening because the liberals are mad. And that is and the way, the people, the more liberal community gets mad needs to be very much, they need to think about a lot in terms of what happens and how they do things, because there does need to be a very real admitting that certain things have been off the rails and need to be repaired. But they're also, and with that understanding, when you have that understanding, you kind of come into a more you tend to be viewed in a more rational light, of being more rational minded when you say things like, for instance, the State Department or the foreign policy. We were doing some very monstrous things abroad, of course, but it that seems like it's reshaping. It doesn't seem like it's just disappearing, right? It seems like we have some very serious problems. Yeah, and I mean it comes into an understanding that, hey, all right, well, there's an acknowledgement that we're obviously doing wrong, but this guy Trump is like, I mean, he's obviously on the take. Like, he is like that. There's never been a more like clownishly corrupt person in office that I've seen in my lifetime, at least. That is crazy. But we need to understand that this ideology right now, it's allowing these guys to essentially do what they want with these weird tech guys, move fast and break society. This is the idea here. And it seems like they can throw out words like efficiency while not doing anything that suggests efficiency. You know, like, they can do that. And it's more acceptable now. And that's what's crazy. Like, it's you know, we're looking at today, and we really do need to understand that this relationship, education, is already something that is instrumental to society. But when we talk about finance and creating a system that basically incentivizes students to give their data to tech companies to get finance for more education, that is not a system that you want in place. That is a very scary system, especially when you got you know, the quotes from Peter Thiel talking about, hey, I don't think this works. What did he say? He said, I don't think democracy is compatible with freedom, or something like okay, all right. These guys get money, and they think that their money is proof that they are genius, and it is actually, like, they are actually sick people, like, actually, like, mentally ill people. In a lot of cases, like, the sick society that we live in now, it rewards people, and people think that, oh, this means that I can lead, you know, us maybe into a better society in some way, shape, or form, and not understanding that the sick society is rewarding you because you support the sick society. That's why you're important, right? Epstein I'm not sure if he was a billionaire, but he had like hundreds of millions of dollars, right? We got systems in place that will reward sick people. They're like that is the absolute understanding that a lot of us need to have right now. And this, you know, these guys, they, you know, the particular people that are in place today, the VC, you know, in terms of for the digital wallets that are in this particular system for that's in the making, we're talking about like people who are VC firms, you know, and the PayPal mafia guys, and these guys are coming up, and they're all a part of the same crew. They're all part of the same network, and these guys are very much experienced with lobbying politicians. They've already developed relationships with politicians, and I mean, think about a politician saying no to this new upcoming company for education, and them saying no to somebody who has been paying them for years and pays them through various different avenues, right? You guys really should understand the politicians, they serve the donor class before you. That's not something that should not be a surprise to you. And John, he talks about how these guys right now, they are entrenched in this administration. They are entrenched. And this idea of, you know, where the money is right now, like Donald Trump is being treated like a vending machine. These guys, they are, they are in this administration, right? This is not like, this, like I said, this is looking like deep state sanctioned work right here, and I think we need to start to understand that. And this article, in terms of understanding just how the roots that we're forming and the roots that kind of exist today that are really going to help support this network if it comes into being, it's scary to learn about, right? Because John talks about how a lot of these guys, these apps that we use, right, the social media companies for sure, but also just the regular apps that we use, they are in alignment with this idea, right? Mark Zuckerberg will sell you out without even being asked. Like, these people are in alignment, and it is scary to think about it. Because, I mean, today, the way the world is right now, you don't really think about how bad things can get. You just think about, well, you kind of just question to yourself as you kind of trudge along, well, it can't get too much worse than this. And that does not look like the case. And I'm going to continue to educate myself on digital currency. I want you guys to understand, this is not like a game that you can really just afford to be completely disconnected from. It is we can't be passive in this particular environment. It's it can easily turn into very, very much a hellscape, we'll say.
Madam Secretary, and I'm not a great mathematician, but I think you were talking about $1 trillion. I believe 1.5 billion times 10 is $15 billion.